Hi, everyone. Welcome to Office Hours. If you are watching on YouTube, you can get more information about how to become part of our producer group, the people who are actually driving the conversation, at officehours.global. You'll see a little link down below, and you can click on that and find out more information. If you are in Mukana and asking those questions, you are a producer. You are driving the conversation with your questions and your votes. And so it's very important that you put those in and make sure to pay attention to the voting, because we spend more time on the top of the hour than in the bottom of the hour. Today we'll especially. So we'll be doing that. If you have questions, first hour is general questions. Second hour is something we'd like to spend a little more time on. Today we're going to be talking about our 500th anniversary. This is the 500th show so far. So it's quite a, and we have quite a crew here. It's an incredible panel. I'm going to warn our panel that we may not get to everybody every time for every question. There's a lot of people here, about twice as the normal. So we'll do the best we can. And let's go ahead and jump into the questions. Bill, what do we got?
Absolutely. Our first one comes from Vienna, Indiana. For Zoom users who want to have flexibility and quickly customizable backgrounds relevant to each event, what does the panel recommend? And says, I avoid virtual backgrounds like the plague thanks to office hours.
And it's going to be, people are going to have to be really not subtle about their hands, because like that's a very small, a lot of small windows for me. Go ahead, Stuart.
A simple solution for a real background is a gobo on a light, and then you can just change it, and that way you can change the color and change your background shape, and it'll be out of focus and it will look professional.
Go ahead, Leo.
The other way of doing this is a feature now, which is the video filters. So you can actually put bugs straight onto the screen, and you can do it inside of Zoom, or you can put frames around, but you have to have it done at the administrator level.
Go ahead, Carl.
Yeah, so also watermarks can be put in, but as far as like a background as well, so people can actually have like watermarks. And if anyone who's on Wi-Fi, if you can change to not Wi-Fi, that'd be good.
Yeah, the one of the things to think about is color too. Sometimes I'll change the color behind me so that can kind of like, based on whatever I'm doing. Sometimes I neutralize it, and then and you can use a lot of different colored lights on what you have there. One of the things that we've done with sets in the past is build them modularly. So literally, we built sets that snap on like magnets. So you can have a couple different sets that you want, and you literally use 80/20 as a subframe. And in that 80/20, you insert magnets into it, and then you can put magnets or steel on the back of your pieces or whatever that set is, and it just snaps on. And so that's another way to do it. And the 80/20 is very strong, so you can literally put shelving in if you wanted to. Go ahead, Liberty.
Ken, actually, if we could spotlight Ken. Ken was doing the switching, just for anyone who wants to see that demo live.
Ken is the master. Ken's constantly changing his background. Oh, there you go. You can see Ken changing his background there. We never know exactly what environment Ken will come in. He's got so many. I don't know how many rooms he's using, but it seems like a lot. Go ahead, Aaron. I can't hear you, Aaron.
I would also say that a bookshelf, and you could change the things on the bookshelf, which is really nice as well.
And I will say that while we have lots of complex backgrounds, I've never really pushed it one way or the other, and I'm going to have a physical background or the ability to do a physical background within the next couple months. But I do like the plain ones mostly as a host, because I can see everybody a lot clearer with simpler backgrounds. But definitely think about also how soft that background is. Go ahead, Rupert.
So I was going to mention something which I remember seeing posted on LinkedIn a couple months ago, and this is AI for you. I just went to LinkedIn to find it, and it was the first thing that popped up in my feed. So, and you can read about that what you want, but this is it. It's a little kit thing here, which you can flap back and assemble, and then they have different overlays that you can just slide down over it. So I can put a link to that in Mukana.
There's a lot of them that are like brick walls or wood walls or other things that you can stretch behind you. Just remember that they need to be far enough back that you don't notice the fact that they're just a facade. So if you've got 3, 4, 5 feet back behind you, you can change those a lot. And they're, as long as you have a short enough depth of field that it just is kind of a flavor. Next question.
Comes from A. Mitchell's. Good to have him at the top of the list again today for this show. Can Ken Jordan give an overview of the scheduling ticket and access system he was discussing with Richard Lavery, as well as review why such a system might be a good or not good for people who need that for their events? Thanks.
Go ahead, Ken.
No. Yeah, I can. It's still in development. I've got a full scheduling system designing or building actually for being able to schedule things for office hours. So everyone can put in and time zone, no matter what their time zone is, and we can see that. But it's yeah, when I've finished it for Richard, then it'll be ready for everyone else.
Perfect. Next question.
Next question comes from Rabbi David Pashkin, in Miami, Florida. And he says, eager to use Zoom OSC, but log into Zoom with my Google single sign-on. How can I get around this?
Go ahead, Andy.
I'll put a link in Mukana to managing your password from Zoom support. It'll show you how to add an alternate password to your SSO account, which you can then use to sign into Zoom OSC with.
Perfect. Next question.
Moving on, A. Mitchells is back again from Washington, D.C. with Grant Whitehead as the official first registrant to this office hours. Can we discuss how Zoom's registration system and other registration systems, other advanced management processes have changed over the years, especially with new tools like Obvio and OnZoom?
I think there are as many registration systems as there are events. So, I think everybody has their opinion of what's important and what's not important as far as that registration process. Go ahead, Andy.
I think the thing that'll shake things up is when we have those pre and post meeting systems tie into the in-meeting production systems. I think that's what we're waiting to see, is that synergy between things like Obvio and actually being able to manage the actual production of the event.
I think that, I think a lot of people want Zoom to do a lot of this, and I'm actually not a big fan of Zoom trying to get into the event business, only because I think that they need to do something. So their new event platform is great, and I think that making it easy for most people to just kind of turn something on is fine. But I think you're never going to get the innovation that you're going to get with individuals. I think continuing to open up the API and continuing to make it easier for third-party developers to give people exactly what they want rather than kind of what they want is always going to be the best solution. I think Zoom is doing a pretty good job of kind of going down the middle of the road and making sure that there's a great turnkey solution. But then, I think that what they need to do is do more and more work on the SDK and APIs to allow folks like Andy and others to customize it in Grant and Blue. Go ahead, Leland.
Yeah, we're developing our own ticketing and event system ourselves due to the fact that we've tried Eventbrite, we've tried Ticket Tailor, we've considered all the other options, but part of the problem we run into a lot is being able to actually authenticate Zoom users within an event, being able to tie that user account to the actual registration that's being done for the event. And most of these third-party softwares don't have that ability. So until that's actually available, we're tending more toward our own event system.
There'll probably be some other solutions in the future, but right now it's a troublesome problem. Next question.
Jonas Dattel of Reutlingen near Stuttgart, obviously, in Germany, says, for playing recorded Dolby Atmos audio, how many channels would you need?
Go ahead, Carl.
In theory, you can start with 5, but 16 is a nice number. So this kind of the 16 layout is kind of what Dolby actually kind of present. You'll notice there's a left wide and a right wide. You can take those 2 out, I guess. So technically 13 plus a subwoofer. And as far as a good receiver, one from Monoprice, you may look for something a little bit different. This is 110 volt, 120 volt for you, Jonas. So you may want to look for something in Europe, but it has a 16 XLR out that can go to any amplifier you choose.
Yeah, and the 2 that I've been looking at, I have to get one of these soon, is that and the Denon. Denon makes one. It doesn't have quite the same number of channels, but it's also really high quality. It does 8K, I think 8K 60 as well. So those are the 2 to take a look at. When it comes to your basic transport of 5.1.4, oftentimes what we're transporting is 10 channels, the 5.1.4 plus 2, which are the stereo outs. As far as what we worry about actually doing transport, you're not actually managing Atmos in that level, because we talk about Atmos, but it has to be redefined as Atmos, but channel based, or it may even be object based, but it can't do it. We can't pass the object information down the pipeline right now. So that's the issue that we have with doing, as a purist, a pure Atmos stream is not something that a lot of us do yet. So we're mostly doing channels and then redefining it so that it shows up properly for the receivers. Next question.
David Brady in New York is up next, and he says, with the ever-expanding panel, what solutions are there for seeing all the panelists beyond the 49?
With events like this, we have 49. We don't usually get this large, and I love having an event where we have 49 amazing cameras with amazing panelists and good audio. It's not actually, it's actually really hard to run the show at this with this population. So I'm more comfortable at 2024, and that's probably where we're going to start limiting it at some point. Is that between 20 and 24? It's an easier number for us. Go ahead, Carl, and then David.
So Zoom OSC will allow you to have multiple logins in multiple instances of Zoom, and then each of those instances can have a different 49.
Yeah, go ahead, David.
Right, but would the order be different for each of those 49? Is the order of the panelists, specific to my view versus yours? That's
it. Oh, for you, yeah. The panelists, again, I think that we're going to end up limiting the number of panelists at some point. When we open up 2.0 and it goes for a couple months, there'll be more stronger demand than we have spaces. So we'll probably end up doing kind of an invite process that will bring, that some people will have invites and it'll be kind of people sign up for it. And so we'll book a certain number of people to be in it for a given day, maybe leaning a little bit more towards audio on Tuesdays, a little more towards video on Wednesdays, that type of thing. But then the way as far as viewing to the broadcast, that's what Andy's been working on. In fact, I think he's running it right now. But we wanted to make sure we tested it today because of the number of people we knew would be in here. But what it's displaying for the broadcast, or what it's preparing to display for the broadcast, is the last 16 people who talked. So in Isadora, it's grabbing that information. It's just looking at who was the last of the 16, because I find it to be a little bit more pleasing than the 25 is a little too much on YouTube, and it actually looks much nicer than what we see normally. As far as us seeing it, yeah, you're absolutely right. But I think that once someone talks a little bit, it should reorder it to a point where you see it as a viewer. You should see everybody on screen one, if there were more than that. But I think that we'll probably, as we kind of move forward, we'll probably limit it to a certain number that probably is under the 25, for that process. Next question.
Comes to us from A. Mitchells again, and this time he says, can Aaron Huslage, as today's show engineer, talk about his experience with it today and his approach to vision mixing such a special occasion for special clients? Thanks for joining, and double thanks for volunteering to help out.
Go ahead, Aaron.
Thank you, first of all. I feel like with a big show like today, going back and forth, I have very few controls, right? Because I can see everybody or I could see one person. It's a little bit of a hammer, but generally, you try to switch to coverage and then go back to, medium, close, etc. Right? Like, so it's very simple to maintain, your perspective on where things are. It's just like editing.
And we'll look back on it as, wow, remember when we did this in Zoom?
Yeah, exactly.
I think that, Andy's been making some great progress. I think we're less than a month away from probably moving past it. So we'll see how it goes. All right, next question.
Artie Adius here in the panel, Silver Springs, Maryland, says, first hour, what favorite product or technology has been obsoleted since the first episode?
For product that's been obsolete, it's kind of a 500 question, but we'll answer it here. But I can't think of, I'm trying to think of something that we just don't use anymore. Yeah, go ahead, Richard.
One of the probably the biggest visual changes is just on camera mics. So earlier it was all headsets. Now it's, we moved to on camera mics.
Yeah. And fundamentally, one of the reasons we did the headsets was because they were the most inexpensive thing that got a reasonably good audio. But then I think we just started playing harder, and just started saying, well, we really just want it to sound the way it sounds. Go ahead, Ken, and then John. We'll go pretty quick because we've got a lot of hands up and not a lot of time.
Wi-Fi is the thing that's been obsoleted. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Go ahead, John. Bretto.
Virtual backgrounds.
Very much virtual backgrounds. Go ahead, George.
Less ATEM Minis, more ISOs.
Yeah, go ahead, Jason.
What about ring lights? Ring lights?
I think there's still a fair number of ring lights. There's still good large sources there. I think a lot of us don't use them as ring lights, like right around the camera. So a lot of them are us are using them, off to one side or another. Go ahead, Jeffrey.
One that tried but never got it.
Yeah, that one. I don't know if it was ever obsolete because it was never really didn't make a lot of impact. Although they keep on updating, and I keep on getting. I get emails. Go ahead, Roscoe.
George took mine. ATEM Mini was going to be mine.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, next question.
Todd Worley in Baton Rouge, Louisiana says, is there a place where all the regular office hours on-screen participants have their name, specialties, and contact info available, thinking that some of us may want to engage them for pay for a consultation or troubleshooting at times? Go ahead, John.
I have assembled a list I'm going to share with Ken to use at the office hours disposal.
And the other thing to do is get on Discord and reach out to people in Discord. It's good methodology. Go ahead, Carl.
Yeah, I was just going to say Discord because most of our screen names can't be the same as the name in Discord.
Yeah, go ahead, George.
So Discord now allows you to put more in your, it allows you a bio right now, so you could put more inside of your bio. So that's a good way to folks to reach out to you.
Absolutely. Rupert?
I know lots of us are also on LinkedIn, so that's just another place where you'll find some information, I guess.
Yep, absolutely. Yep. Next question.
Danny Law in Malaysia is up next. And Danny says, what category cable is recommended for SMPTE 2110? And what's the maximum length for transport or to transport that feed?
I think it's Cat 6. Go ahead, Cat 6E. Go ahead, Aaron.
So yeah, you need at least 10 gigabit Ethernet for most things, and that would be Cat 6A. Typically you'd want SMPTE fiber, which is multi-mode fiber, which can go about 10 kilometers or so. And then you can get to single mode fiber if you really want, and then go as far as you want, basically hundreds of kilometers.
Go ahead, Carl.
So yeah, Cat 6A, and the length rule is generally, if you're doing one stream, it's going to be 300 feet. If you're doing two streams, 150. If you're doing three streams, 75 feet. That's it.
There you go. Next question.
Bo Cordell in Charleston, South Carolina, up next with thinking about building an 80-20 desk for my home office. Has anyone done this and have any plans or tips they'd like to share?
Go ahead, Jeff.
Definitely. Buy more than you want, because you will want it once you start building it. So whatever you think you just absolutely need, buy more.
You can't have too much 80-20.
Nope.
When Marty Brennis started bringing 80-20 into our office, I didn't like it very much. I thought it was a little geeky or whatever, and I was a little like, But now when you're building an office or building anything, no matter what, even the cutoffs, you'll find uses for. I mean, it's just so useful. Go ahead, Aaron.
Draw it first, so you know what you're going for.
Yeah, we have a company, Cabinet Works, out of I think Cincinnati, and we just talk to them, and then they design it, and then they send somebody over to put it together. So that's how we handle it. Go ahead, Liberty.
Make it modular if you can, just in case you want to switch areas or break it down. I've traveled with mine.
Wow, interesting. I've never thought of traveling with it. Hosma?
Yeah, we don't get 80-20 in South Africa. We get very good carpenters. So I had two desks made. I had two desks made, one at home and one in the office. Very modular, as Liberty has said. So they have drawers on end, and the desktop can be unmounted. It's got channels for all the wiring, tubing. So it's, come to South Africa.
I find that all through Africa is you just get used to custom building everything, and it's in many ways superior, but it is it's much more labor intensive than what we have in the US. Go ahead, Jeffrey.
I'm confused what an 80-20 desk, what makes it an 80-20 desk?
Oh, 80-20 desks are desks that we make using a extruded metal called 80-20. So if you do a search for 80-20, 80-20, extruded metal, you will find, you can order a catalog. It's one of the catalogs that I don't have very many catalogs. I have a handful of catalogs sitting in my office, and 80-20 is one of them. Mostly just so I can browse and think about things that I could build with it. Go ahead, Jeff.
That's what I was going to clarify. It's technically called extruded aluminum and the extrusion overseas, especially they use it a lot, quite a bit in Europe. 8020 is our American manufacturer of it, and it's 8020.net is their website, and it's addictive.
It's super addictive, and it's all different sizes, different pieces. And what happens is it's basically like an erector set for, for adults, and you can just build anything that you want in there. And again, what I do is I build my sets with it. So I build the substructure of the sets in 8020 and then line them with magnets and then just snap my sets on, and it works really well. And it'll hold a lot of weight. But if you walk into a broadcast facility, I mean, just about every broadcast facility that I've walked into, all the monitors, everything else, the desks, they're all built out of 8020, and now that they will have nice Formica or wooden or wood or whatever they're going to use for the desk part, but that's just attached to it. The entire substructure is all 8020. Next question.
Brett Dykus in New York City is up next with, has anyone used the video in waiting room feature mentioned in the last Zoom update?
Yeah, go ahead, Jesse.
Yes, I have. It's about a 30 megabyte video that you can upload. It doesn't auto play, it doesn't loop at the moment, but it's going to be great when it's out of beta.
So it just plays once when they get there. Is that the idea?
It doesn't. Yeah, I guess so. I think it'd be nice if it sort of looped, but it'd be great, time to say, make sure your mic is turned on. Here's a little intro to what's going to be happening for this particular event. I think Rupert has tried it before.
Right. Go ahead, Rupert.
Yeah, I did some testing with it, and it's that's right. It doesn't autoplay. It doesn't appear to. I saw one time where it appeared to autoplay, but really most consistently it doesn't. It downloads locally and plays locally in their client. So when the user joins, they get the little spinning thing for a few seconds while the video downloads. Then they have to press play. It plays it once, and it also starts unmuted. So if they want to hear what's going on, they've got to unmute it. It doesn't loop, and it seems to fade to black at the end. So if you've got a holding slide at the end, you're not going to see whatever the last frame of your video was. Also, this is not meeting specific. It applies to your entire login in Zoom, not your entire account, but any meetings that you organize as the user, the same video will apply to all of your meetings. So you can't do it on a meeting by meeting basis. You can also do 16:9 and 9:16.
Seems like loop would be the big thing. It would be nice to have a loop. The other parts I think sound like, oh, it's okay, but yeah, loop would be nice. Next question.
Leo Mendel in Pinner, UK is here on the panel with, what build did Carmi have to do to get on the panel today, and did you have any issues doing so?
Carmi is the holder of the after hours. It's why after hours is 24/7. He pioneered it. He pushed it forward. So this is the first time I think that he's been on office hours itself. Go ahead, Carmi.
Well, I have to say that I got a lot of help. I'm in Mike's office and working with the cameras, Pocket 6K on an Edelkrone motion control head. And the rest is an ATEM Mini, can't see any of this over there, but MixPre 6, and the mic is a Rode NT1, all put together. Last night we worked till really late and on after hours and did mic check and mic check and mic check, and then Tlalok and John Barker helped with getting the color right and as best as they could, and the lighting right, and so that's where we are.
That's great, fantastic. Hasmukh.
Yeah, I just want to salute Carmi for his endurance, and also for this. We've kind of figured out a relay now, how to run this thing for 22 hours. And I must say we've become very good friends, digitally speaking. And it's just been awesome to get to know Carmi. I mean, I just can't believe how much effort he's put in. And I think all of us need to give him a fantastic salute. Thank you, Carmi.
And it's the after hours that, again, I think that Carmi's pushed and really made it possible for us to get to that point, really driving that forward. was just amazing. I was sitting in this line. I had to get a COVID test yesterday. I'm fine. I have to go to a production. I have to take a test and like 2-hour line. And I just opened it up. I was like, oh, I wonder what's going on after hours. This is a great conversation going on. like anytime, like I was just a random, like I just jumped in and there it was. It's amazing. Go ahead, Carl.
I just want to say, yeah, it's great to see Carmi on the show. And I just want to say his lighting looks really natural. It's really nice, actually. It just looks like he just turned on the camera and that's it.
Yeah, it's good. I'm sure it's not. Go ahead, Todd.
I was going to say, first of all, after hours has been amazing. And yesterday, I think was probably the first day while I was working in my studio. I just had it on all day and participating on and off and watching everybody help each other and get through things and changing mindsets, especially, is kind of incredible. But the one thing I wanted to say was that, Carmi has this penchant for always asking me if I'm going to play for him or for you or them or whoever. And I threw down a gauntlet to Carmi yesterday. If he's going to keep on doing that, then someday I'm going to ask to interview him. And we're going to find all about Carmi, because I don't know a thing about Carmi, his life, his path, his trajectory. And I want to know. Inquiring minds want to know. So someday that is coming to a Zoom call near you soon.
Go ahead, Carmi.
So I just want to say that one, I'd love to have Todd play for us this morning. And I think that should be part of the 500 part, if that works. And because it only seems appropriate. I do it every day or several times. And my story is not that interesting, but I did agree to it. So
I did. Courtney.
Yeah, Carmi, now that you've got that 6K on a motion control rig, we got to expect a slight dolly right or dolly left every time we cut to you, nice slow creep.
Next question.
Moving into Gordon Lake's question, and from Los Angeles, California. And Gordon says, when sending out a crew to cover a VIP for a Zoom meeting, what crew members are important? For example, can the makeup artist be replaced with a Zoom or networking person?
Go ahead, Stuart.
When it comes to the makeup, no. Keep them, because you want to make the VIP look as good as possible, because then they look as professional as possible. But if you're cutting out staff anywhere, start at the top. Cut out producers or people that don't need to travel, people who can work from the office rather than people who actually need to go.
Go, George.
I think what I find to be very important is make sure you have a female counterpart in your crew. Sometimes when you're dealing with female VIPs, you really and truly need to have a female person on the crew. That's very important.
If you do have someone technical filling in for you for makeup, sometimes what we do a lot of is just put on something that's going to take off the shine. So we use Mattify or something similar to that. Just make sure the person has done it before. I once handed the duties off to one of our technicians for a very famous actress, and her, as he kind of glopped it on, she asked him, "Is this your area of strength?" And that's become a joke internally in our, because it was not. He said yes, but it was not. So I think that the main thing is that you obviously need somebody who can understand all the technical things and also is client facing. And what I mean by client facing is they mostly need to not talk. Like that's the number one thing that someone has to do, is not talk in front of the client almost ever. You talk to them when you need to. People who are conversational are the people we never send again, and so, so we just we talk to them from somewhere else, but the person setting things up quietly gets everything set up, is really good at saying, sir, like whatever the connection is, or whatever the proper thing is for that person, know what that is, decide what that is. And that's all you say is, we need to move you over here, be very warm, don't be afraid, but don't say very much, and know what you're doing. And if you don't know what you're doing, talk to us in the other room and then come back in and do it. But you don't want to have people lose faith in you. Go ahead, Chris, and then Liberty.
I would say, based on the makeup of this panel, you should hire none of us.
Except for maybe Liberty. Oh, can't hear you, Liberty.
Wrong one. I know it was mentioned to replace the producer possibly, but to Alex's point, especially if it's high profile, you want someone who's like commanding the floor and building that relationship with the client. So just thinking through that. And I put a comment in Mukana of like, how many people are you referring to? Because we can help more there as well.
Yeah, I mean, typically if we're sending someone out to support someone, it's 2 people. You know, it's one person that's heavily technical, one person that's heavily logistical and client and going to talk to the client. That's the typical group that we'll send out, but sometimes it can be more. Go ahead, Jason.
Very good ears, very attentive, but also forget everything the moment you leave the room.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you don't want to talk about any of it later. Next question.
Douglas Carmichael's up next on the list. And Douglas says, how would an always-on broadcast facility handle cleaning and sanitizing large equipment like switchers and router panels? Would high-end switchers and routers have a lockout feature where audio and video still passes, but the panel input is disregarded?
Go ahead, Carl.
So they have multiple studios with multiple control rooms, and those control rooms are taken out for maintenance and those kind of things.
Go ahead, David.
Yeah, also staffers have been, where I'm at, they've been instructed how to clean stuff after shifts, etc. We also have rooms that are off master, so only people designated can manage stuff there.
Yeah. And for a lot of the things that we use, you can run them via software for a short period of time. And remember that a lot of times that are very few places that are always on 24/7 are always on with someone cutting. You know, a lot of times they are in some kind of playback state that can be anywhere from a couple minutes to an hour, half an hour, 2 hours, all night, you know, those types of things. So they're not always using the switcher to do that. Go ahead, Rupert.
Yeah, these kind of facilities will always have redundancy anyway. So, and being able to switch to that redundancy is part of the plan. So you can use these maintenance windows to, hey, we're going to switch to system B, run on that and switch back as an exercise.
And there's some of these that run in different countries. So they literally are running the switchers and they're switching over seamlessly. I know one that's in Europe and one that's in the United States. And they just simply, they run 24/7, but they're switching which studio is running it, you know, depending on what part of the day. Next question.
Hey, Mitchells is back from Washington, and he says, to clarify, the system Richard was working on was for his physical building and included capabilities for key code access to doors to fully allow hands-off ticketing to people using the theater or attending the show. Can Ken comment on that aspect, please?
I think that one's feels a little non sequitur at the moment. Yeah, it's kind of hard for us to piece that one back together. I think the questions kind of have to be self-contained there. Next question.
We'll move on to Rupert McCrae in Dallas, Texas, says Google Drive can share videos via sharing links, either publicly or privately. Links bring users to a page with a YouTube-type player to watch the video. There's also a code snippet to embed the video. Could this be used as a playout or playing platform?
I'm not sure what you're trying to use it for, I guess is the question. Go ahead, Rupert.
I mean, we were talking yesterday, for example, about how to like maybe share private videos on YouTube and the complexities that go with that. I just remembered at that point that the Google Drive share video thing seems to use like the YouTube video player. And when you send somebody to one of those links, that's kind of what they get. And there's an embed snippet there also. I was just wondering whether that could be used in that use case.
Yeah, go ahead, Leland.
Not particularly. What you're looking at there is an embed code for a playback video. So that video would basically be buffering from the drive out to the actual player in the browser that people are watching from. So there's no way to live broadcast to that, but there is a way. It is a good source to just review videos prior to playback. It's what we use all the time. We tend to use Google Drive as a way to just get the videos in place so everybody can make sure they're where they're at.
Yep. Go ahead, Carl, real quick.
Yeah, so that it is essentially using the YouTube backend, and a lot of universities actually have an enterprise version of this, which they used to have their lectures put out after the fact.
I find it just a little bit janky. Like it is the technical term for it. It always doesn't quite work for me. You know, and if I put it in a professional space, I wouldn't use it at all. Next question. We're going to move pretty quickly because we have a lot of questions. Next question.
Aaron Gencarelli from Flagstaff, Arizona says, cry once, buy once, bought the Blackmagic 6K Pro, looking for beginner pointers from the panel.
Go ahead, Carl.
ATEM Mini or ATEM Extreme. That'd be the first companion piece I'd put with it. And then you can do a lot of things remotely and a lot of cool features. The
new small rig cage is a really great thing. It's got a built-in T5 insert on the bottom that you can just put your drive into. I would get that sooner than later. Go ahead, real quick. Stuart, Jonas, and then Bill.
Don't rush out and buy L series lenses straight away. Get a couple of basic lenses and get used to the camera. The other thing when picking lenses, if you do go for something like an L series, be aware they are clutched on the focus ring. So your focus marks will drift if you are trying to do focus pulls from a focus rig. So just those are to be aware of. Manual lenses are better for cinematography.
Go ahead, Jonas.
If you want to learn something about your camera, we now have almost 24 after hours, and we have guided a lot of people through a lot of Blackmagic menus. So feel free to just join if you have any questions.
Absolutely. The after hours is key. I mean, you can come on almost any time of the day, and there's somebody that can answer your question there, especially about something that's Blackmagic. Bill?
One of the first things I stumbled on when I got my Blackmagic 6K originally was I thought I had to dumb it down in terms of resolution to go on the internet. Turns out you don't have to. You can leave it on the 6K setting and it will figure out what it needs to do. So don't downsample, down
Go ahead. Yeah, in fact, the 6K is the only way to get full frame in Zoom is to have it set to 6K. Go ahead, Huslage.
Besides harassing panelists when I'm in panic mode, I use something called DSLR video shooter. Gives you a very nice, simple guide on getting to know your camera.
Mark, real quick.
Real quick, the app for the iPhone makes it a lot easier to control it when you're using it in the middle of a show.
Learn how to load LUTs. Like it'll be something you want to do all the time as you get going. So learning how to load LUTs and get resolved so that you know how to make them too. And we're going to have Charles is going to be on sometime in the near future to talk through that a little bit more. Next question.
Vienna, when relocating to a new home, what would the panelists look for with regard to room size, internet access, furniture, and the like?
Go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, it's internet access, fiber internet access. So that's the thing that's keeping us here because we have that. So yeah, that would be one of the first things on my list.
Go ahead, Rupert.
Yep, fiber would be important, but I'd also look to see what my backup options were, whether I could have a secondary connection, 4G, 5G maybe, or even Starlink in the future. I'd look for room size is going to be dependent on your market, but I'd look for a dedicated space in the home anyway, preferably away from foot traffic elsewhere in the house. And if you can be away from traffic outside too, away from a main road, away from loud environments, that'll help you for at-home production. I would look at the type of construction in the home and the suitability to run more cabling later, whether you're going to run fiber inside, that could hold you back at a later point. I'd look at the fuel supplies. You've got your suitability for solar later down the line, or natural gas for a generator. I wish I had that here. Whether you're within range of an Amazon warehouse, same or next day. Whether you have a UPS store nearby, and whether you're within like 2 hours of a major medical center.
Can we go real quick here? Just David and Craig and Jason, and then we'll move on. And Edwin, real quick.
For me personally, it's a piece of furniture. It's an electric sit-stand desk.
Craig?
I was just going to say for room sizes and stuff, think about ceiling height. If you're going to put a grid up or anything else, you need ceiling height.
Yep, but Jason?
Window positioning and sun. If you're going to be using natural lighting, if you're going to black everything out, it doesn't matter. But if you're going to use natural lighting, window positioning actually matters.
Figure out how you're going to block all the windows. Go ahead, Edwin. Last one, we'll move on.
And trains, if you're close to any sort of transportation, airplanes here in Chicago, it's a big deal. So knowing what you have to work against.
Next question.
John Foltz in Selling Grove, Pennsylvania says, is YouTube TV worth the price? What do you get, or is Apple TV better?
Go ahead, Aaron.
YouTube TV is the best cable service out there.
I mean,
Apple TV is a whole different thing.
I have YouTube TV on my Apple TV, so that.
Well,
I guess that's how we watch.
That's
YouTube
how I watch
TV.
it.
So it as a service, what I use it for is mostly researching graphics and opens and closes and everything else, because you can I have every news thing, every sports event, every live. I just say record all of them. Now, I record all of the things that are there. They're always available. So if I want to go back and look at super sources or lower thirds or whatever, I can go back and research them. And because it runs on a browser, I can screen capture them too. So I'm able to grab onto pieces that I want to do research for really easily and throw them into a folder for me to do reference or show to a client and talk about it. So as a business expense, it's worth it. Do I actually watch any of the content? No, I don't watch TV. Rupert?
If you're looking for just a reasonable way to watch TV online, look at lowcast.com.tv, something like that.
Yeah, I'm afraid I just can't watch the format anymore. Like the format of TV bothers. I'm just bored. It's so good, Leo.
If you want a cost-saving way of not having to watch TV, tune into After Hours. You won't need to watch TV ever again.
That is the idea. All right, next question.
Rabbi David Paskins back from Miami, Florida, this time asking, what are everyone's thoughts regarding using a service like allmylinks versus having your own website?
Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, I've always preferred to just have complete control of my own destiny, especially if it's related to, professional work or a company. These types of sites, while they're convenient, sometimes have a tendency to come and go. And having your own domain gives you the control to pick and choose what you want to use.
Go ahead, Todd.
In essence, you really want to drive people to your domain solely. So to get them there once, it might serve you, but the more you can have people refer inside your own website, the more traffic you have.
Yep. Go ahead, Ken.
Oh, ditto. Just, have your own site.
Yeah. Liberty?
Unpopular opinion is by having allmylinks or any of those sites, you also control specifically. So if you're speaking somewhere, you're doing a presentation, you're setting out exactly what they see. So that being the bonus, definitely your website, but just a use case for why you would use something like that.
Go ahead, Rupert.
Like as an end user, I'm less likely to follow somebody's link platform like that because I don't really know what's going on behind the scenes. If they're just going to present me with a list of their own links on their own website, I just trust that a little more.
Leland, real quick.
Yep. As a website developer, I tend to always focus on my own real estate. And when you're getting someone else's links in there, you run the risk of them being redirected somewhere else prior to your website. So always be careful what those sources are and whether they're advertising in front of your own website as well.
Go ahead, Stuart.
Yeah, be aware if you're using an external service of where that service is located. Companies like WordPress or Wix and what have you have to conform to local censorship laws in the country they're based. That may affect the content that you wish to display.
One thing I will say is with all social networks, if I see a new social network I haven't been on, I immediately jump on it and stake my claim for my name. Anything that I see an original URL, you'll find that in most social, not all, unfortunately for me, but in most of them, if you do Alex Lindsay, you'll see my name on, it's me. And same with all links. I saw that yesterday. I had never seen it before. And I immediately went up and went and registered. I don't know if I'll ever use it or not, but I just put my flag in to make sure, because there's a couple of other Alex Lindsays that are crazy that I have to cut off otherwise, all the time. So I would recommend just staking the claim to your name at every service that you see, and then you can decide later whether you want to use it or not. Next question.
Keenan Campbell in Princeton, Illinois is up next with, during the final of the men's track and field at Olympics, how did they black out the open air stadium in the middle of the day?
Yeah, go ahead, Roscoe.
They didn't. I mean, it's the time shifting going on. They're not blacking out the stadium, but they do have LED lighting. That's the biggest thing they've talked about in Tokyo, is that every venue, every place has LED lighting, which gives them the ability to turn stuff on and off like crazy.
Good.
No
good
sodium vapor.
So they did have a typhoon go over recently. So if you go into that high, like heavy overcast, you go from like a sunny 16 rule to like a sunny 5.6. And so the LED lighting actually may be brighter than the actual skylight.
Next question.
Ray Franklin in Mount Dora says, I see my new HuddleCam using AMCap, AMCap app, but not on my ATEM Mini Extreme. What am I doing wrong?
You go ahead, Guy.
Yeah, first thing is to shift it if it's on input 1 on the ATEM to go to 2, try a different cable. 3 is go into the settings on the HuddleCam and make sure that you are at DVI, instead of DVI mode, switch it to HDMI mode, and then make sure you're at 1080p 30 and not at 4K 30. And that'll fix it.
Next question.
Vic Hernandez in Springfield, Missouri says, how about an on-the-bench panelist option for participants who would like to be able to chime in on esoteric issues? For example, I'm in the cellular technology field.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we definitely want to do in the future is be able to have people that we can, specialties they think they can talk to, that we can search. And I'm going to work on that with Ken, so people can sign up for, like, I'm interested in being a panelist. I think some of it we're going to find from after hours. I mean, I look at the main place we're going to find who we're going to put on the panel over time is going to be in after hours. But knowing who those people are, at least to reach out to them and have them know that we're going to do something that might be around one of their expertise is great. But beyond technical knowledge, we need to know how they fit in with everybody else. So I would highly recommend hanging out in after hours. Next question.
Rupert McRae in Dallas, Texas is posing an online existential question. When will in-person audiences start to think they are the ones at the kiddies table?
Well, I mean, if you're watching football, you're kind of already there. Like, I mean, like the football, the crowd in the football in a American football game, you're already in the kiddies table because people who pay for it are the people who are watching on TV. That's why there's a guy that comes out with a big orange thing that says, yeah, you don't get to play, and everyone just has to sit here until we're done with the thing that actually pays for the show, and then he leaves. Go ahead, Leo.
There's a very famous example of this, the Football World Cup final in Germany. Everybody at home was sat there and watched somebody headbutt another player. Everybody in the stadium never knew what happened and thought the wrong player got sent off. And you realize that actually you can see much more when you're at home than you can see when you're there.
Yeah, go ahead, Jonas.
The exact moment when we do press conferences that are hybrid, and the moment that people realize that they would much rather be online is when they sit in their 3-hour drive home.
Yeah, Carl.
Yeah, so cricket in Australia is very similar to, I guess, the NFL in America. So a lot of people rock up to the stadiums with an iPad and have the official app, pay like $10 a year for the app, and they can watch a live video feed so they can see the replays and they can see themselves, and they'll wave at the camera when they see themselves show up on their iPads.
Yeah. So it's already happening, but I think we'll see it intensify over time. Next question.
Nicholas Mitras in Adelaide, Australia says, did Dell UltraSharp webcam versus Brio? Did I miss the conversation?
I have not played with the Dell UltraSharp, so I actually don't know. Has anyone played with that webcam? Dell's, I will admit that by brand, they were notoriously the worst webcams that we ran into when we did. Like any Dell was generally, again, we have processed thousands of people, and so you get used to a certain expectation, which was generally never met with the Dells. That said, this one on paper looks really good. I don't know how new it is or when it came out. I'm not familiar with it. 90 degrees field of view on the thing means that the base lens is too wide for what we want. So fortunately it's 4K, so you could possibly, but I don't know whether those are lens changes or whether those are just it zooming in on a 1080p signal. Go ahead, Leland.
It uses the Sony Starvis CMOS sensor, and it has 3 modes, so you get the 65, 78, and 90 degree angle. But it has some intelligent ADI features on there, or ADO features as well for HDR. Comes with a USB-C and USB-A cables, so it has some flexibility with the it also does 24, 30, and 60 frames per second, I believe, in full HD.
Yeah, 24 is interesting. I have not seen a webcam do that. Next question.
Keenan Campbell in Princeton, Illinois, and I'm trying to parse through this one. Last night we participated in the launch of Hopper IPA, India Pale Ale. Is this a beer question? Supporting Cal Parks, and then it goes into, has anyone used Zoom apps? And if so, what was your favorite app? And where do you see the apps going with Zoom? I'm a little confused.
Yeah, go ahead, Andy.
I can speak to the Zoom apps part. That I think that I'm excited about them for production purposes, being able to put a tally light in there, being able to remote control the presenter system. Now the apps ecosystem needs to, it's still growing, from a development perspective. So we're not able to do that yet, but I am confident that we'll get to that point in the next year, and it'll open up a lot of options for just things to deploy in the Zoom meeting client for talent, because it's so easy to invite them to install the app.
Go ahead, John.
Zoom apps are fun. They're new. We were using it in the event last night, and the best thing is we made our goal for what we wanted to collect for the parks. So follow the money. It worked.
There we go. Perfect. Next question.
Jason Sipe in Marietta, California says, are in-person events beginning to pick up in your area? If so, has there been a discussion about needing to pivot back to virtual only events?
Yeah, we're seeing the opposite now. Go ahead, George.
in DC here, most of the clients I work with downtown were on the verge of taking down those virtual events and hybrid spaces. Now they're staying put because things are heading back, as you know, in the same direction.
Stuart.
I'm just going to point out that Melbourne, the town that I live in, is in lockdown again because of transmission that occurred at large locations. Whenever there's a spike in-person events, there ends up being a lockdown.
Go ahead, Aaron.
Correlation? That's you to decide.
Maybe, Aaron.
I know that the library here has stopped the in-person, kid readings and stuff and moved back to online. It's just too risky.
Go ahead, Jeff.
We just did 3 weeks of outdoor events and broadcasts and large events, one of them being in Atlanta that Liberty came by and visited us with. Thousands of people there, and there was no repercussions after it. I think it depends on the area and how, I guess, knee-jerk reaction those areas are.
Go ahead, Rupert.
I was meeting with some folks yesterday, and they are certainly keeping their options open and being prepared to go in different directions.
Liberty.
I did a quick poll on LinkedIn. I don't know how well you can see that, but that was 943 views, 14 response of people saying, it's 50% of people are waiting it out to see what happens next, while there's still 21% that are currently in person, and some people are looking to see if they're going to be in person or hybrid in the next little bit.
Go ahead, Jeffrey.
The biggest fight right now is between masks and cards, and I think they're going to fight to the wire before they end up canceling any type of in-person event at this point.
Yeah, it's going to get worse. like that. We're at the beginning of a curve, not at the end. So, and this is one of 2 or 3 more waves coming. And the thing is that what we constantly see are people who want the world to be different than what it is. Everybody who was looking at just what it is last year, the beginning of last year, said 2023. Like that, the people who are just like looking at the math was like, that's how long it's going to take to go through. And we have a lot of people who are just agitated and want it to be some way that it isn't. And they're just going to keep on zigzagging. I mean, we're just going to watch this insanity for another probably 18 to 24 months of going back and forth, rather than just going, okay, we're just going to do it this way for a little while, and then we'll come back to it when it's totally. But the fact that we have a bunch of people coming together, to Stuart's point, just creates the next lockdown. And that's just going to keep happening. Next question.
Moving on to Douglas Carmichael, and Douglas says, why would frame rates in broadcast be designated as one frame removed, 720p 59 versus 720p 60, and sources designated by 4-digit numbers, 2200, and not a descriptive name?
Yeah, go ahead, Roscoe.
Well, the 5994 is the standard that came out of when color TV had to broadcast black and white TV signals that were compatible. So we got stuck with that frequency many, many years ago. But why they use shortcuts is because they only get a certain number of characters to use when they do these.
They got to put it in some. Yeah, it's got to go somewhere. We use codes for everything. Like most of our naming conventions, like when we're building stuff, is like 4-digit or 5-digit or 3-digit codes. And you have to figure out what's going to go in there. Go ahead, Carl.
Yeah, so that's exactly right. So it's just a nomenclature that the broadcaster is using. The technicians on the outside know exactly what it means.
Next question.
Rupert McRae in Dallas, Texas, up next with what concert box office ticketing platforms have done a good job of adapting to digital or even hybrid events, including maybe even a streaming element?
Go ahead, Carl.
So DreamStage is only streaming. They started in this pandemic. They mainly did classical at first, but now they're doing a little bit more pop and rock. But yeah, DreamStage are a small operation, but it looks like they're growing, which is good to see.
Go ahead, Richard.
In the UK, the 2 prominent ones, TicketSolve and Eventbrite, are doing quite well, but they each have something missing that the other has done better. So they're still grappling with it, but they're getting there quite well.
Go ahead, Courtney.
One thing they're all facing now, and it's become a huge problem, is ticketing bots that these organizations, unscrupulous organizations, program a whole bots and will go in and buy up all the seats in a venue in a matter of a few seconds, and none available for any of the real people, and then they scalp them, of course. And so combating that is a cat and mouse game that's been going on forever.
Of course, it doesn't matter when you stream it, and you can have as many people as you want. So it kind of defeats the bot process, because there's not a constrained supply. I don't think I can get into who, but there's a band that did 3 shows that made over $20 million, online over last year, and it's a lot of people in that group are thinking really hard about how this is going to go. I think that the primary income for bands will be online events in the next 5 years. Next question.
Rabbi David Paskin is back from Miami with, as much as I love and promote the idea of digital first events, how do we recreate the closeness and connection that can only happen in on-site events?
Go ahead, Sky.
Continuity. I think the consistency of reaching out, of if it takes a daily connection or if it's a weekly connection, and routine and consistency. That's my opinion in keeping connected with humans.
Yeah, go ahead, Roscoe.
Carmi to host your after hours. He is wonderful he really is. He's wonderful at inviting people in. He finds that new person and says, hey, why are you here? Who are you? And he's wonderful. So get someone like that on your team.
Go ahead, Jonas.
Cool thing with digital first is that it doesn't have to be digital only. It's digital first, and then you can have a local meetup. Mm-hmm. And we have been doing, for some events in Germany, we have been doing that for 3 years now. And these are the most amazing events because you have a small group of people that really like enjoying their group and have we send them our stream and they really enjoy it. We have interactivity over Slido, and it just works. And there is closeness because it's their group versus a whole stadium full of people.
Yeah, absolutely. Rupert, Bill, and Chris, real quick.
Yeah, I think the answer is staring us in the face right here. This is how you do it.
Yeah. Bill.
Well, and subsets of this, my experience with the remotes, the band piece, has been fabulous in terms of making connections with people I never would have interacted with in real life. And some of those people I absolutely love. And it's a warm connection as good as the ones I had with my neighbors before. It's just different. It's additive, not subtractive.
Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I would disagree with the premise of the statement and say that thanks to office hours, I have friends on virtually every continent in the world. And these connections are absolutely real.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, I'm closer outside of my family. I'm closer to this group than people in this group than anybody else in the world. So I think it can be done. I think it's time. Time passes through a lot of that, and focused conversation. Next question.
Guy Cochran in Seattle is up next. Any panelists updates on NDI 5?
Go ahead, Jeff, real quick.
Quick. It works. Install it. Enjoy.
Go ahead, Stuart. Real quick.
Installed it. It didn't work. Uninstalled it. Wait for the packages that you're using with it to run updates like Zoom, like StreamYard and what have you. Once they're all updated to match it, then go for it.
Honestly, that's not going to happen because they're independent. That's not going to happen. You'll be waiting forever. Everybody has a responsibility to do it within 30 days, and they don't.
Yep. Jason, then Andy, real quick.
NDI 5, NDI remote, I should say, is one way only, so don't expect anything like vMix when you're using it. Also, it's still in beta.
Go ahead, Andy.
Spent pretty much all of yesterday with one version of our app with NDI 4 and one version of our app with NDI 5 and looked at very carefully the performance implications. And for M1, it actually did give us a little bit of extra headroom there. So that was nice to see it working natively on Apple Silicon.
That's great. Go ahead, Jeffrey.
Yeah, Wirecast is still on 4.6 anyway, so I'm guessing the next update will be at 5, and I'm expecting vMix and of course OBS. That'll be the toughest one. Whoever decides to do that. But do keep in mind that the basic programs are still the basic programs. It's just those added items with bug fixes, of course, but the added items is the key for NDI 5. If you don't need them, then you might want to wait.
All right. We're now going to shift gears to our second hour. So if you have more questions around our 500th, then go ahead and throw those in. This is for those watching on YouTube or elsewhere. This is our 500th episode in 500 days. technically we've had probably a couple other episodes hidden in. So is it the 500th session? Probably not. It's probably 515 or 520, maybe 550. So, but is it but as our regular show, we've done this 500 days in a row. And so it seemed like a good time for us to kind of look back and just like in the 1 year. By the way, put a date out there for everyone to think about. We need to think about it. I mean, 500, we probably should have done something with. I've been a little busy. December 19th in 2022 will be 1,000. So we have Monday. It's a Monday, just in case you're wondering. December 19th.
I'm busy that day. Sorry.
I just wanted. I was hoping if I gave you enough warning, Chris, that you'd actually show up. But I see how it is. So anyway, so that'll be our 1,000th one, but we're halfway there. And so I thought it'd be good. So anyway, so let's go ahead. We've got a ton of questions, so we're just going to, or comments and questions. So we're going to go ahead and jump into those, and we'll just kind of weave through them. So
Okay.
if you've got comments or questions, throw them into Makana, and let's jump to the next one.
First one comes in from our old friend Grant Whitehead. Why do we know him here from Adelaide, Australia? He says, favorite office hours day, only 500 to choose from. My top day, day one, second hour with Blue Melnick, and days with Leo Laporte, not because it was an interview, but because we were all hanging out with him.
Go ahead, Stuart.
I'm a camera guy. So all of the days that we had Chris Summers here as a guest.
Yeah.
Done.
It's really good. Really good. But we can't wait until he's done with the movie he's working on. Leland?
For me, one that loves to cook and one who watched The Galloping Gourmet as a child, that was obviously my best episode. I enjoyed very much having him here. Thank you, Sky.
Yeah, go ahead, Sky.
The day that Alex Lindsay said, hey, we want to try something. And we got to do Mad in the Kitchen with the whole family and grew a wonderful experience together.
Absolutely. Hosman?
My birthday. That was my best day because we shared this wonderful cake and image that my daughter made. And then how she weaseled all of you to send me private messages on my birthday. That was an awesome, awesome day.
That's great. It's great. Ken?
My favorite days, well, there's one which is a favorite and also most disastrous, was the day I put my hand up to ask my first question. I did find the clip. God, it's so embarrassing. The where I was muted and then muted again. And yeah, it was that, but on that day it was either, yeah, I fell off the bike, do I jump back on and come back or not? Well,
yeah,
I came back, as you can see.
We're glad. We're very glad. Liberty?
I'd say it was the cloud production. That was great because of just stretching myself, but then Guy and just the community embracing me, so that just improving those skills. So thank you all. Love you guys.
Love you too. Todd?
I think it was in excuse me, in April when I finally decloaked and I nervously did my first sound check. I was trembling and I just scared and that's my best day.
It's great to have you here. Jeffrey?
All the musicians, including Elmo, because I never thought I'd get to say hi to him at all. And then, of course, when we started the band and the remotes was born.
Yeah, go ahead, Guy.
Yeah, I'd say the Raspberry Pi build that wasn't proper on the show, but that day it was amazing because we all felt this bond of we completed this thing, including not leaving Tony behind. And I mean, he had a little struggle, but we manned up and grabbed him and pulled him up, and he had a big smile on his face when his played. So that was a cool experience.
Yeah, I think that there's been a bunch of them. I don't have too many that I like, but I think that what's really interesting is how many different ways that we've experimented with doing this. And I think we're going to keep on doing that, where we play with, I think after hours is now kind of blowing up. I mean, we were in after hours this morning. I think there was like 70 people in after hours. At like 5:30 in the morning. And we were digging into some, I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but we were digging into some pretty technical stuff from some folks in Japan. And there's a lot. It's just interesting how how this has evolved, and how many different ways that we see this community working. And a lot of it is that we can test things here, that we can test them from the future, is what we talk about this internally, because we are in the future. what it looks like when people have good audio, good video, understand how to be in the community, understand how to do all these things. We can do things here that we could never do anywhere else, because you'd spend the whole time trying to figure out whether you can hear someone or not, or they'd be all talking over each other, or they'd all be, you know, and so it gives us a safe place to do an enormous amount of research and figure out how this all works. Go ahead, Carl.
I give my time to Carmi.
Carmi. Yeah, go ahead, Carmi.
Thanks. I think that my two favorite episodes are anyone where we have music from Todd or anybody else that is great, either during the show or during after hours or in mic check time. And my second favorite one was actually the episode where we talked about gear on site, because we sort of talked about it originally in after hours as a kind of joke. Where do we buy our black clothes? And we turned it into a really amazing episode. And I think that kind of thing is what makes the show so interesting. And the fact that we've decided that we should probably do that one again, because it turned out to be so deep, and that wasn't what we expected, but because everybody stepped up and we got some amazing questions, it was really cool.
One recently that sticks out for me is earlier this week when we had someone who couldn't make it on Wednesday. So I was like, we'll talk about the Olympics, and I put it out there and sent it out. And then people that are working on the Olympics, you know, in our group show up to answer questions. I was like, okay, starting to get real.
All of them. They all showed up.
Not all of them. Well, one showed up today, this morning early. That wasn't on that. That isn't part of that team. So they're kind of popping up. But having people that are on the ground doing stuff is just, you know, I think we're going to get more and more of that, and it's exciting. Go ahead, John.
My favorite show, or sort of shows at the very beginning when you started office hours, and we were supporting educators, helping get gear, getting things going, the launch of the education hours, and we continue that, but that was my favorite.
And I still the education hours almost weekly are still my favorite. It's gotten into this kind of philosophical meandering conversation, which I enjoy, but I think that it's a really become fascinating every Saturday morning. Go ahead, Jason.
Three moments. Emily on 12/05/20, so December 5th, 2020, when she kind of just broke down. You can just kind of feel the emotion of where educators were at the end of first semester was my first moment. The second moment was when you were discussing logistics and packing Pelican cases onto planes and how you went through that entire logistics process. I learned a lot from that. And then third was when Carl decided to start using Keynote and never stopped.
Yeah, it's absolutely. There's just so much innovation here. You know, I think that's the thing that's exciting, is that and it keeps accelerating because we're just learning, you know, from each other. Next question. Oh, go ahead, Carl, real quick before we jump on.
Oh, I just want to say I love it every time Alex shows off his telestrator. Next question.
Next question.
Well, now how am I going to ask the next question, which is from Bo Cardle, and Bo from Charleston says, can Alex explain how he does his telestrator? And he has a hashtag, things that have happened 500 times.
Good setup.
I guess I have to answer the question, so we'll see how fast I can answer. Let's see if we can do it in 15 seconds. I've got a Wacom tablet. I've got the Mac Mini and an ATEM. The Wacom tablet goes USB to drive the Mac Mini. The Mac Mini has an HDMI that goes into the ATEM. The ATEM has an HDMI that goes back into the Wacom tablet, so that when I draw on the Wacom tablet, it tells the Mini where to put the pixels that go in here. This is keyed with a downstream keyer over top of that, and it goes out to all of you. There we go. Next question.
Well done. The next question comes from our friend Talalak Miguel Lopez Waterman in Brainerd, Minnesota. He's moved. Anyway, how did After Hours come to be?
Go ahead, Leo.
So we were having a discussion in post, and Alex said something on the line of, oh, this could go on, you know, this is Now We're After Hours. And I said, that's the name. You've just hit it. That's the name. And that was how the name After Hours came about.
Well, and we had the pre-show. So the evolution of this over 500 episodes is that we started at 7, like right at 7. The first one, I think, started at 7 a.m. I just turned it on at 7 a.m. and we all met. And very quickly, I realized I need to start a little earlier so that we have time to get our wits about us before we go live. And so I started opening at 6:45 and then 6:30, and then Tucker said, can we do mic checks to make sure everyone's all at the same level. And so mic checks began, and I think they were just a couple minutes, and then it became more and more organized. And then I was like, well, I started opening at 6 to give people a little time to get in, and we can work on things and everything else. And so it sat in that state for a while, especially as we started streaming at 7. I felt like we needed time to get ready and it was also just interesting. What I was amazed at is that it's been pretty much the same, that there's about 80 to 90 people 15 to 20 minutes into the thing that are all there early as part of this kind of informal conversation. And we did a post show because I needed to test something for meetings. We had just set up a new system, and I was like, we're just going to do a show right afterwards, because I don't understand how I haven't really done breakout rooms that much, and I got to figure this thing out that I'm trying to figure out. So we did one post show, and I was like, oh, that was really fun. like meetings are really fun. I understand why we'd use them instead of webinar. More of us can get connected, and there's people that showed up that we hadn't seen. And so then we started doing the post show afterwards. And then very quickly after that, we created the pre-show. So then there's the pre-show, which is before the pre-show, and then there's the post-show. And those ran, the pre-show would start at 5 until pretty recently. And we had been talking about going 24/7 for a while. And Carmi had pushed the outer envelope of that, of just running it all over a weekend. And then I ran into a Zoom. It wasn't a Zoom bug. It was just a limitation of the feature set that I didn't understand, which is that you can't set more than 50 meetings out. And so I was in a situation where I was in August, and I didn't change the start date for my meetings or my webinars. And I'm sure that someone said, well, how often are you going to have more than 50 meetings? There was some conversation of like, how often would you ever need to do that? We do. Anyway, so I couldn't figure out why suddenly one day I couldn't figure out why I couldn't go forward. And so I just made up a new webinar, and we had already talked about calling it after hour. I think we talked about it, or maybe we did it then. What are we going to call it? And then it became after hours, and now it's after hours. Go ahead, Carmi.
So I can only talk to how it started to be 21 hours. And that was that Alex always said, don't pass off host to anyone. It's really important. You don't pass off host. And he usually would say, when he would hand it to somebody, keep it open for an hour. I need it later, or keep it open for a couple hours. Can you be here for a couple hours? Well, a week ago Sunday, he handed it to me, and he didn't say that. So he didn't give me a limit, and I didn't know what to do. So I just stayed on because I couldn't hand off host to anybody. And so I was really nervous and worried, and people stayed up and we talked, and I was terrified because, I didn't want to hand off host because I didn't want to get Alex upset. So the next morning we came in, and there's still some people, Leo and Tlaloc were on, and various of the other Europeans came. And so at that point, we're like, well, the pre-show starts, we should jump over there. And I'm like, well, I guess if we do that, I can hand off host. And that's how we got there. So yeah, that's so
technically, I think we've been running 24/7 for, I think, is it 2 weeks now? Almost 2 weeks?
It's actually this is our second full week. We had 2 days before, but then we stopped at 9 o'clock on one of the nights, and then we had one day the weekend before where we did the same thing. Yeah. And I got to say that the only way it really works is this completely rigid and completely informal process we've come up to hand off at the 9, 10, 11 o'clock California time to somebody else, which is usually Hosmuck. And if he's not there, then we have a very, very detailed, complex, rigid process where we hand it off to somebody from London randomly. So it works very well. Very detailed and organized, but not at all.
Yeah.
But really based just on the community. I mean, the fact that we've built up this kind of trust, and the fact that we've been able to do something. John Adelson keeps coming in. He should join us to discuss the handover of the watch, just like we would do, from the Navy background. And it really has been fantastic that without a formal organization, we have a very formal organization. So I got to say, it's great.
Yeah. And I have to say that the crazy thing about after hours is that, I think I mentioned it earlier, you just drop in. I'll just drop in some random time that I need to test something, or I need to ask someone something. And now I'm setting up my computer so that I have it opened all the time, so that I can just, it's become the opened office that we all wanted, which is that you can actually talk to people creatively and quickly. You can listen to a conversation if you want to, or you can turn it all off. So you have complete control over the open office, except that it's virtual. It's amazing. Go ahead, Guy.
Yeah, it has been amazing. Just yesterday, or maybe it was the day before, Andy and I were trying to figure out an SRT thing, and just to have him there, just to run a quick test was amazing. But I wanted to give a hat tip to A. Mitchell's, who's often in the after hours. He's the one I think that has really pushed it, because he would go back into Discord and be like, "Hey, it's still going. Hey," and so that would pull me back in because I was unaware that it was still going, but I would see that. So hat tip to you, A. Mitchell's, and Beauty Bubble. Wouldn't be episode 500 without mentioning the people that are in text.
Absolutely. Hassan.
Yeah, it's gone bad because now I feel compelled to get up a little earlier. And today I played golf after a long time. I gave Carmi a heads up that I'm not going to be here today. And it wasn't a very pleasant round of golf because I felt so guilty.
Dude, you have to mount a camera in the golf cart. It's simple. You can get past this.
Go ahead, Sky.
Yes, Chris jumped on yesterday and help somebody else. So the automatopoeia of a thing. You said I probably wouldn't have named it. What you did if you had thought about it, but you came up with the original name. But then the after hours. So now when you stated the other day, again, we first started with the ooh, and now we're in the ah.
Yeah.
It's rather appropriate.
Yeah, go ahead, Carl.
So as to Carmi's point, as to know when to hand over hosts, for me, it's when the sunlight coming in my room is at 45 degrees. So you kind of use like a sundial. So it's right now, it's midnight. And just to let you know, it's going to be another 10 hours before that happens. And that's how long I'll usually be on after hours before I go, okay, time for sleep, hand over to someone else.
Carl has stopped sleeping since we started after hours.
Yeah, go ahead, John.
Well, you say during the day, if you get a question, you should think about it so you could put it into Makana. Now you just go to after hours. I mean, any question anytime could be answered.
Yeah.
And my wife has complained I've become such a creature of habit. And as Carmi talked about it, we have this official changeover. Like I have the deck, you had the con, and it's become my habit. I take my cholesterol medicine, check that Carmi has made the proper transfer, then I go to bed.
Go ahead, Carmi. I can't.
I do want to call out again Rachel and A. Mitchell. I couldn't have done it without them. First time I had a host, I didn't understand a lot of stuff, and I'm on an iPad mostly. And they were fantastic. Rachel is absolutely my conscious. She needs to get a Jiminy Cricket icon, and we've been discussing that. And A. Mitchell is just always there. He has helped a million times. There are a couple of times when we made some decisions based on discussion. And one of the things that's also added is in a large part because of him and Rachel, which is they're always on chat, and the chat messages weren't getting brought in, and there was this disconnect. And this is another tribute to the group and to after hours, into office hours. We have this thing now called Magic Chat, which is a Zoom OSC coupled with Isadora thing that brings in as a video into one of the grid squares the last message in chat. It started out with a complaint about something, and then I pointed out that on the iPad it's hard to read the chat while you're there because the interface is terrible. And Tlaloc went off and did it, and then he figured it out, and then there was discussion, and he figured out more, and then Andy Carluccio came in and said, well, I can simplify these 100 nodes that you had to do in order to do this by writing 5 lines of JavaScript, and now it was there, and it's just been this evolution based on having a million people. And I got to say special thanks as well to Tlaloc, who's been super helpful, and whose show that he's in Brainerd for just got canceled due to COVID. So I just want to, again, special shout out, and everybody else that's been there. It's been amazing. I mean, the first time we did it, the overnight, it got to be pretty sparse, and by the second weekend that we did it, I mean, not even the second week, but the second weekend, so I did it the week before, there were already like 20 people at night, and by the middle of the second week, there are people there all the time. And A. Mitchell's constantly posting, "Hey, we're here," was a super great thing, because a couple of times people would just show up like, "How did you know to go?" "Oh, I saw the link on Discord." So
Go ahead, George.
First, let me thank Carmi for being persistent. Even when you have your camera off, you'll say, hey, George, are you there? George, are you there? Also, I think on a personal note for me, I think the whole experience of off after hours now, for instance, yesterday, Chris was working on Zoom ISO and he left. And then Andy came in and I jumped in Discord and sent Chris a message and said, hey, Andy is back in after hours now. So being able to tie Discord to after hours and said, hey, Andy is on the platform right now. Do you want to come back in? And, you could just use all these tools now to communicate with everyone and said, hey, Andy's on deck. Do you want to come in now to answer that question? So I think everyone needs to really start tying all those together. That way we make after hours this thing where when we have someone like Andy comes in, a message could go out right away and say, hey, this person's on deck. So I think it's a good vibe.
Yeah, absolutely. Richard?
Yeah, just exactly what George just said. It's become the lobby for office hours. It's the place where you meet. If instead of going off and doing a private meeting to do a test or something, we now meet in after hours and then test it there. So you feel it reinforces the feeling of being connected to the community day in day.
Yeah, Todd.
The other thing that's I seem to notice the past couple of days, there are more and more people coming in with their first decloaking and saying, hey, will you help me with my mic? Will you help me with my sync? Will you take a look at my video? Can I have a ruthless review, but maybe not too ruthless? And, and real like input where they might not feel so comfortable at 9:20. Yeah, for me, 9:20, for you, 6:20 in the morning. So that I think that's been what is it called? A result of us putting it into after hours instead of just the pre and the post show and that stuff. It's become a place of refuge, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is why we're so particular about recording. It's just give people kind of a safe place to go. And we are working on, I know that some folks want text in there. We're working on a way to do that without using Zooms, because Zoom, of the structure, the way Zoom structures it, doesn't work for what we're doing, but we're going to fix that anyway. As a note to our producers, I do have a hard out at 9, so we will stop at 9, and we have a lot of questions. So it's really important for you to vote on the questions and I'm not going to try to rush through questions. And so just to know that, so you want to vote on questions if you're interested in them. Next question.
Comes from Vienna. In Vienna, what are Alex and the panelists' goals for office hours and their own projects before the 600th anniversary?
So that's about 3 months from now. So we're talking near the end of the year. Go ahead, Leo.
It's the other shows which are very similar, well, not similar, have a similar thread. It's to try and work out if there's a way to bring them together. So I run a show, Marty runs a show, Ed runs a show. Sorry, I've got Tony has a brilliant show. Sorry, it's trying to see if there's a way to make it so that those things come together, so they sit as like the iceberg sitting outside of after hours. Right. So they're the peaks. So the after hours runs underneath it, and these things bump up, and so they run concurrently. That would be something I'd love to see.
Yeah, Sky.
Add the kitchen season 2, or some iteration of it, possibly with Kyle and or other guests.
Yeah, absolutely. Roscoe.
Reach out to teachers more and let them know this resource is here, because we are so supportive, and I would just love for teachers to be able to come to after hours and ask questions.
Well, after hours to ask questions, and then also on Saturdays, we have a meandering conversation only because people don't ask technical questions, because I think a lot of us are pretty technical. But if they ask technical, if teachers come and ask, like, I don't understand how to use Keynote, we'll just stop and start talking about Keynote. So it is a really great resource there. Jeffrey.
The big thing in October, if NAB happens, we're going to work on putting together a group and see how this works in real life and as well as virtually.
Yeah, go ahead, Jason.
Utilizing this format with 2 other teachers to actually try and see if it works in a high school setting. So 3 high school campuses all doing class together.
Yeah, Leland.
Yeah, and with the after hours set up the way it is, I think the opportunity for us to open up some breakout rooms for shows that could take place on a scheduled basis might be an opportunity. I know that's Alex's call, but I kind of see that as a possibility moving forward, where you have an open space where everyone can communicate, but then, hey, 9 o'clock, can we jump into this breakout room and hang out on this show or another show that's running concurrently? So there's all kinds of possibilities.
I think we're definitely doing something like that. I just have to figure it out. I'm going to let my big thing is as many of people have noticed, I move very slowly. So I'll let after hours settle for a little while before we add anything else to it, just to let it find its own legs. Go ahead, Carl.
Yeah, so I think by episode 600 or day 600, I think we can have probably a structure for labs inside breakout rooms within after hours.
Yeah.
Because in the main show of after hours, we'll leave that to after hours. That has its own vibe. But I think it's really cool if people know at a certain time they can go into a lab. So like we've been doing synthesizers in the last few weeks. It'd be nice if, a few of us could show up at a certain time that we all agree upon. Like we let people know a week early, of course. And then we can go in there for 2 hours just for a lab, like what Ken Jordan's showing now. And it'll be in a breakout room. So as I said, we don't want to affect after hours, and there's a really natural flow to after hours. So as a breakout room, you can go in there and it's a predetermined time.
Yep. Go ahead, Andy.
I'm excited for 2.0 and getting that off the ground and switching over to that and showing that we can really create something super professional looking without millions of dollars of gear in a TV studio somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. Chris?
Yeah, yesterday, Sky and I very organically shifted over to a breakout room to go through his mixed pre-setup. And it worked. It's really a great way to get problems solved. And anybody else wants to, watch in, like when Andy was helping me with Zoom ISO.
And it was helping a previous guest, Terry Morgan. So it's a reach out to a reach out. It's awesome.
Well, and I think that the thing is that a lot of times we learn just by watching. All of us are smarter than any one of us, and the main thing is that having that group, you'll hear a bunch of good discussions that you don't need right now, but you'll remember, oh yeah, we did talk about that, or oh, I didn't think of that problem right now, but it's something that is that we hear about later, or that we need later. I think that, for me, it's definitely, we're getting the 501c3, set up right now, and then building out a more structured solution so that some of the ebb and flow of office hours is my production schedule. And I'd like to get past that, so that it's really about, the community taking more of it over, and having it run down that path. And it's mostly just a matter of me getting enough time to do lots of people have volunteered to help. I need to have time to hand it off to them with some responsibility. And so that'll be happening starting over August, over the next 100 days. Obviously I love being here and I'll be in all of it, but I want to keep on handing off bits and pieces of it so that it's more sustainable and that it keeps growing. It won't keep growing if we don't hand it off and have other people take on roles and everything else. And we've already had that happen informally, but we're going to add a lot to it. I think that we'll probably have, my guess is in 100 days, 200 people working on some aspect of office hours. And, by 1,000, we'll probably have maybe 500 to 1,000 people working on some aspect, of what we're doing. And so we'll see how that goes. Go ahead, Carmi.
I'm most looking forward to actually meeting Alex in person. Alex and I have attended together a million events. We have
never been in the same place.
A trillion friends in common. We have been at the same event with the same friends and never met. And so, and even the one time where I almost met him, I had to drop off a power supply, dropped it off at the hotel, and he was not yet back. And then, so that's haven't actually met in person, but that's what I'm looking forward to. Exactly.
And I do think 100 days, I don't know if it'll be 100 days from now. I mean, I tend to be fairly pessimistic. And so I think that it may be sometime next year, but I do see us, when I look at what Sky did with barbecue and everything else, I see us at some point having global barbecues or braais or whatever we want to call them, where we're all getting together locally, maybe some of us by ourselves in our backyard or in other ones where there's 5 or 6 of us and some where there's 10 or 20. And we figured out a way to use Zoom to tie all those together so we can all kind of interact with each other. And I think that's something that when it makes sense, we'll do. But again, I tend to be fairly conservative about that kind of thing. Next question.
Moving on, David Brady in New York is up next. And David says, favorite office hours day in his case was Pi build seconds. Well, what will the next cooperative build day be? Are there any Arduino projects on the horizon?
Go ahead, Stuart.
I would love to see something that includes somebody who's not in the panel tonight, which is Nick Justishan, and see how the Pi can be used in Unreal.
There you go. Leo?
I had a discussion earlier about turning these Arduinos into lights on from the ATEM Mini, and we're going to try and do the setup for it.
That's great. Leland?
I've been thinking about and would love to do a PC streaming build for folks to actually sit down with an empty case, put all the components in it, and let people see how a streaming machine's actually built.
Yeah, and we'll experiment with some labs. We're going to do a MetaHuman lab starting not this weekend, but next weekend with Nick, where we start to do it. We're going to move much slower than we did on the last one, so people can have more time with it and kind of work through it. But we're also doing cooking again with Damianti and Hasmukh not this week, but next week. And so we're going to play with those too. But I'm trying not to overwhelm people, but as we go into the fall, we'll be adding more and more labs, both some of them informally during the week, and then Saturday will be busy. You won't be able to do all of them. Like just letting you know, like there'll be lots of things to do on Saturday. But it'll be busy. Go ahead, John.
And following in the Pi build model, Roger Wagner is working on. Carl put that up for you. Spin that. That's a tally light built on the microbit in a pizza box. That's not how we would see it work, but it's the different features you could have. You could have a countdown. You could have the numbers. You could have a circle. You could do little test messaging. So we're ready to launch that. So we just need to figure out how to do it.
It'll be on a Saturday and it'll be soon. So we'll trade notes and
we've got all the parts. We have to figure out how to get it to order. It's not on Amazon. We're hopefully going to sell it through the DV store.
That's perfect.
But it's a lot of fun. That the small LED lets you send messages. You could, essentially the pizza box probably is not how you're going to want to mount it on your camera, but this is a prototyping box.
Yep. Sky, real quick.
Yes. Roscoe kind of inspired me maybe to take on a teacher and or a school system near you. And so the hybridization of the barbecue, but also the wetware of encouraging and inspiring and supporting a specific, not the whole world, just one teacher or one school system or one school. It's an idea.
Yeah, absolutely. David?
No, I was going to say that pizza box, does that order come with a pizza?
Pizza and LEDs. Next question.
Comes from Stephen Kimbrough, and he is also reflecting on his favorite office hours. And he says some of the early ones when we were trying to figure things out, all live and real, and it was troubleshooting at its best. Amen to that.
Yeah, I think that a lot of the troubleshooting, I think that a lot of times what we get online or on shows is something finished and not getting to see something get created and all the dead ends that are related to that. Jeffrey, real quick. Then we'll move on.
We did have that one day where everything failed and we ended up having to go over to Google to do the show and then come back. I'm surprised we've never had to do that ever again. So that's a testament to how we have our internet set up for this event.
Yeah. Aaron, real quick.
And the same goes with how we set up for the WWDC shows. I loved that. I thought it was great.
Yeah. Guy?
Yeah, when Phil Langer was doing his presentation on the wedding format, and somebody came in with a Zoom room and it popped our meeting to 7:20, and it was like, I had goosebumps. I mean, it was like seeing everybody so crystal clear. It was like, how do we get this? And
we must have more. Next question. Oh, can't hear you.
Sorry. E. Mitchell's in Washington, of course, says, what have been the most unexpected changes in this community that no one saw coming?
Go ahead, Carl.
The fact that I can function in a peak human with no sleep. That's probably the main thing.
Go ahead, John.
Most unexpected change was the passing of Mike Andrews.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Ken?
Tony having his own show weekly on Wednesdays.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. Stuart?
It's been unexpected to be able to access this amount of knowledge so openly, given how closed a lot of information sources have become
Right.
over the last decade or so.
Yeah. Keenan?
It's unexpected on how many microphone upgrades I've bought in because of 500 episodes of Office Hours. I think I'm on 3 or 4. Thanks, Alex.
My pleasure. All right. Yeah, go ahead, Tony.
I just want to quickly say, I think it's amazing how we've been able to help the teachers in the beginning of COVID. And we are still helping teachers. So I think that's a great thing.
Absolutely. Next question. Can't hear you, Bill. Can't hear you, Bill. All right. Bill, can you hear us?
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. There you are. Yeah, a little bit about Mike Andrews, because that's the next question, a moment for him and the others who are not here today. Mike was here in the very early days, and it was such a shock to us because he literally came into Office Hours from his hospital room. We all thought he was going to be fine. He'd had a little incident, but we thought he was going to get over it. And I remember the last thing I said to him was, we'll see you on as soon as you're ready to come back. And then he was gone. And that was a seminal moment for this community when we really lost someone we cared about, and so unexpectedly. And it just reminded everybody that you do what you love doing, because you never know when it's going to end.
Jeffrey?
Roscoe said something about it, helping out the educators. And that was the last thing that Mike talked about, is that we try and figure out a way to set that up so we can send kits out to educators that really need it. So I think we need to do that. But the other question is there anybody else that we know of that has passed that we haven't acknowledged?
Not that we know of. Sure. I'm sure there have been. We just they weren't part of the panel, I think, or that we knew.
No.
Go ahead, Leland.
With the loss of Mike Andrews, we also lost another member of our TPL team within 2 weeks of his death. So it was one of those very uncomfortable situations for all of us and our staff to have to deal with, especially during an event production. So it was a little tough on all of us, but we managed through it. Thanks to all of the people here that helped us kind of condole in that.
Next question.
Comes from Vienna. And how do the panelists feel they have?
Well, I didn't think we kind of went through that one, but we didn't follow what Amy Mitchell had asked for, which was just a moment of silence. So we're just going to have a minute of silence in memory of Mike. It was a really core part for those who haven't listened to. Just 1 minute. Thanks, everybody. All right, let's go on to the next one.
Moving on. George E. Kennedy Jr. is up next in the panel. Oh, no, I'm sorry. It's Vienna's question. How do the panelists feel they have individually improved their knowledge and skills since joining Office Hours?
Go ahead, Todd.
I, for one, have learned so much from lighting about Tlaloc and everybody. I've learned so much about network speak. I've learned so much that I never, ever knew that I always wanted to know. So, I mean, I don't have time, but yeah, a lot.
Go ahead, Courtney.
I always thought I was really well informed, but Office Hours has pointed out to me how much I really don't know.
I literally learn something new every single day, and I've been doing this for professionally and amateurly for 40 years, and just haven't, and still pulling up new things every single day. Ken?
Yeah, it's not something I've learned new, but something I almost realized I almost forgot to do was how to tie a tie. I haven't done that in 2 years.
I know.
That was a strange one.
It's hard. It's hard. Yeah, Tony?
Yeah, I learned that that no matter where you are, you can always get better. And I
Yeah.
think that I didn't think that was possible, but I'm looking at what I have here right now, from the Mac Mini, the MacBook Pro, the ancient MacBook Pro that I had that was running slow and making noise, and all of the other things, and how awful I looked when I came on office hours for the first time, and how kind you guys were, and how often Mike would call me and say, "You're okay. We're glad to have you." And I'm so happy that he did.
Yeah, absolutely. Hasmukh?
Yeah, the first time I tried to speak on a panel, it was like Ken, it was a total disaster. So I haven't improved any knowledge or improved any skill. I just acquired a whole bunch of new knowledge and new skills that I never ever dreamt that I would host two very significant medical events, which was totally not in my roadmap. And the second thing is doing live cooking has finally brought myself and my wife together to do something together. Even though I'm the crew and she's the star, at least we work together. So I've acquired more knowledge on cuisine and cooking, but mostly it's been very, very new knowledge and new skills that I'm so thrilled about.
George?
Office hours is the only place that has allowed me to pivot quickly. And when I'm on shows on outside, I wish I had office hour folks next to me. That's all I'm going to say.
Go ahead, Richard.
I mean, office hours has been pretty seminal for us. When we went from a theater that had to close in COVID, we couldn't physically have people. We had 2 PTZ optics cameras and we were running on Wirecast. I'd never heard the word ATEM before last year in March, and we're now got a whole control room set up and whole, it's been absolutely amazing. The knowledge at one point became too much and we almost had to pause watching because I couldn't absorb anymore. I had to actually start using the knowledge more and more, and then I was able to free up bandwidth to start to learn it even again.
Yeah, David.
It's been brilliant.
I just wanted to share the value statement of the place I go on weekends that applies here. It says we listen, speak, and act with compassion, respect, and gratitude, because we believe that everybody can be enlightened. And this is the embodiment of those words. And I'll share that in Ukana with everyone.
Please do. That's great. Stuart?
Yeah, actually, I want to offer some thanks to Tony Mobley for this one. Tony boils a question or an answer down to some very concise terms and speaks in a way that is very easy for us to all listen to. So I've actually learnt to listen better, to listen to what the crux of the matter is. So thank you, Tony.
Sky?
Attitude. When you flipped my thought pattern from content is not king, but community is king. And the biggest lift for me, I can now pronounce the name Hasmukh. I'm still working on your wife's name, though. She's Mrs. Hasmukh to me. Sorry, I'll work on it.
Good, Carl.
So I think the two things was, one was the guy, Jeff and Tucker, doing the switching in the cloud. That was really impactful to, I think, a lot of us as well. And the other thing was I got to learn how to use Keynote. So that's cool.
Jason?
I spent a lot of time failing alone. I learned how to fail forward and fail together.
Yeah, absolutely. Leland?
Yeah, I thought I knew a lot, even wrote a book about this stuff until I got here and realized that I was short on a lot of things when it came to audio, video, technology in current form. And when you realize that it's constantly advancing, we need to stay on our game, because if it's not for us to do that, then everybody else has to learn at a reduced pace. We're helping to elevate that curve so that people can learn faster.
Aaron, and then Liberty?
Reconnecting with my own creativity has been huge here. The technology was easy, but the creativity was hard.
Yeah. Liberty?
I'd say the confidence factors, like you have these ideas in your head and then to see other people doing it or that can talk you through and just be like, wow, so it's possible.
Absolutely. Yeah. Marty?
As a freelancer, at the beginning of COVID, it's like everything ground to a halt and everything stopped. And I wasn't interacting with the people that I used to work with or my clients because there was no reason to. And then a lot of manufacturers started doing training webinars. That was really helpful, and I attended a lot of those. But then I found office hours, and the breadth and depth of information and the resources and the topics and everything, all the technology that's not just being explored, but actually developed here.
Yeah.
That's made a really big impact.
Yeah, absolutely. Carmi?
On me. Mm-hmm.
I've learned that despite having no skills of my own, I can suck resources from hundreds of people who show up here. That's an important one. And the second thing was I had a lot of international connections from other stuff before, but it's really fun to be able to jump on and be talking to people at the same time, and Africa and Trinidad, Wisconsin for Marcus. It's a little, his when he first came on, his thing said Trinidad W.I. but the periods were tiny. And I'm looking at him like, Trinidad, Wisconsin, that's not what I've heard of. But in fact, Trinidad and Tobago, and just all of the others, that has been really awesome. And I got to say, when, I have a special thing in after hours when I say Andy Carluccio's name 3 times, he appears. And the same for quite a few others. It really is the building a connection where it's only virtual initially.
Yeah.
So
Good guy.
Yeah, getting the opportunity to do host. At first I was like, man, this is going to be a tough one, but it helped me understand how present you need to be and how you can't be paying too much attention to chat or doing something else. Because there's a couple times when I really want to jump in there, but it's just like, man, I need the team to, cut the show. I need the team to, field the questions, and it just helps it cruise along when you're fully present. So that's my big takeaway and big learning is be present if you're the host.
Absolutely. Leo? By the way, being present most of the time is good. for most of it, that's something that I'm constantly challenged with, is being present. Go ahead, Leo.
I've learned that some Americans have some humor, including Carmi, that many can speak with their hands by Sky, and that Australians think they're going to finish higher in the medal table, and they're not. But in reality, what I've actually found out is that of how to diagnose the audio remotely even better than I was able to before. And Ken and I demonstrated it may have taken us about 20 times as long as it would have taken Mickey, but we actually were able to achieve something, and we were pretty proud. Carmi didn't help at all.
Okay, we're going to move really fast here. Ken, and then Jeffrey, and then Carmi, real quick.
Yeah, being in front of camera, something I'm not used to at all. And it's office hours has really brought that side. I'm happy to be work behind the scenes, but being in front of the camera and talking like this is, thanks down to you. Thank you.
Absolutely. Jeffrey?
I'm going to steal this from Fenwick. So get your bingo cards out. Buy once, cry once.
Go ahead, Carmi, then we'll move on.
Last 2 quick things. I learned that no matter how good I will ever look, I'll never look as good as Ken Jordan. And getting support from the strong support that I always get from people like Leo that always boosts my ego. So I just want to add those 2 quickly.
Next question.
George G. Kennedy Jr., our friend is from Washington, D.C., and in the panel today says, we've conversed 500 times. What technology has most impressed you that we've covered?
And we'll go pretty quickly. So just pop them out. Go ahead, Chris.
Noise assist.
Noise assist, yeah. John.
Sienna processing engine.
Ken.
ATEM Mini.
Yeah. Bill.
AWS, just how thick and how it's replacing broadcast.
Yeah, go ahead, Leland.
LiDAR.
George.
Frame.io.
Leo.
The ATEM Mini ISO and recording with it.
Yeah, Craig.
The Isadora, all of the stuff that we've seen from Isadora stuff.
Yeah, Stuart.
Strangely enough, for a PC person, the M1 and its value for money and how much it's going to push technology forward.
Yeah, Liberty.
Stream Deck.
Roscoe?
PTZ large sensor cameras.
I think I look at the, go ahead, Todd.
Mix Effect Pro and all of Liminal, Zoom ISO and Zoom OSC.
Yeah, Courtney.
Yeah, and tying into that super source.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Mix Effect Pro has been incredible. You know, like we've been using it for shows, and we started here, and then because I work so much with Andy, what Liminal's working on and what we're building with Liminal is the thing I'm most excited about, because I think it's going to change everything, like how it interacts. Like the more we dig into it and we figure out what we're able to do with it, as we the mixture of Zoom ISO, Zoom OSC, all of these things are tying together in something that I think, as you see it come out in September, it'll be rough at the beginning. Like we're it'll be us figuring it out, but it's something pretty special. I'm pretty excited about it. Go ahead, Guy.
Yeah, in the post-show after hours, Jeff Keithley showed the back of his Tesla where he was live cutting a tennis match, and it was like, whoa, you could have a show in the back of your Tesla, and the big power running into it was just wow.
Yeah, absolutely. Next question.
Leo Mindell, Pinner UK, says, there are a number of longtime watchers, first time on the panel today. Where and when did you hear about office hours?
We'll have to go really quickly because we don't have a ton of time. Go ahead, Frank.
I've been watching Leo Laporte since Tech TV and Mac Break Weekly. I saw Alex on that mentioning office hours. Just had to jump in and see what's going on. And August 1st, I decided it's time to get on camera.
That's great. Welcome, Alan.
Yeah, for me, it was from Mac Break as well. And then I saw Nick on one of his Unreal Engine videos talking about it, and I was like, okay, I need to go and see what this is about 8 months ago.
That's great.
And been on every day since, but
Fantastic.
very quiet.
Yeah, good to have you on camera. More, please. John.
I've been on since day one, and Alex tweeted out, and I joined the first day.
Yeah. Sky.
Guy Cochran reached out to me on a local Seattle Pacific Northwest Final Cut user group. So we connected and continue to see a lot of people from the Northwest.
Next question.
Carmi.
Moving on to Morgan Price from Victoria, British Columbia. I just heard part of Courtney's teleprompter history from an episode last year. I'd really like to hear about that. Is there a list of links to office hours, OG folk, good moments like that, perhaps for the website?
Go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, there's a very short list on there presently, but with the help of the community here, if they can, I'll set up a form where you can send me the URLs and we can build up on that.
One of the things we're working on is being able for you to vote on the actual questions, not just the questions, but vote on the answers. So you'll see the question appear in chat and you'll be able to vote them up. And when there's good moments, we'll have, I'm going to try to put ways that you can put time code in, like someone says that was a great moment and people voted up and that kind of thing. And that way we have the metadata to go grab it later. So we're working on ways to make that work. Next question.
Comes from JJ McKenna here on the panel often, says, what are the most important lessons learned from the worst day on office hours?
I don't know what the worst day was. Well, the worst day was when Mike passed, but I think that I think learning that we're really a community, I think that was what we learned from that. Ken?
Yeah. Don't be afraid to start. Jump in. If you look at my first video to where I am now, don't be afraid to start.
So many of us, including me. I mean, if you go back and look at the very first one, I had some kind of weird thing behind me, and all of us started rough. Like all of us had this kind of weird, rough thing that we were trying to figure out, and we just slowly keep on iterating. Go ahead, Bill.
I think the worst days on office hours are the best days, because that's when things fail and the group comes together and learns how to solve it, fix it, and move on. Yeah. So there's a thread here. Failure is not failure. Failure is part of the path to success. So push yourself until you fail, fix it, and then you move forward.
John, real quick, we're going to move really fast.
The worst day proved you can't stop office hours.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Me and one of the days was that when we had to go to Google Meet, we realized why we like Zoom. Anyway, next question.
Todd Whitney of Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Orly, I'm sorry, says, Is it any coincidence that Alex looks freshly shaved for the 500th? Congratulations, folks. I learned so much here on Office Hours. Grateful for all the time everyone gives to them.
I'm trying to get better about it. I'm doing my best. All right. Next question.
A. Mitchell's in Washington up next with, if you must make a guess, what technology or product that doesn't exist yet will really take this group to the future in the next 5 to 9 months? Opine away, please, and thanks.
Good, Leo.
So, because everybody out there needs to be looking better on camera, I'm hoping, although the Elgato didn't get it right, that somebody will actually come out with a really good camera that is going to have everything that people want, and it's going to be reasonable priced. Because we were doing some tests last night, and when you're having the cameras coming in one way and the audio the other, you're always going to have sync issues, or you're going to have to work on them. And once you get a decent all-in-one package that is reasonable, I think it will come out and it will take the market by storm.
Go ahead, Carl.
A Blackmagic PTZ camera or Blackmagic PTZ head will revolutionize a lot of what we do.
Andy?
I think we've only seen the beginning of what Zoom is capable of as a platform. So I'm excited to see where that goes.
Oh, yeah. Chris?
Maybe we can get the guys at Sound Devices, talk to John, have him make a webcam.
They're out of that business.
Just saying. They know the signal path. They could get it in sync.
Next question.
Courtney Gooden up next. How did the original panelists on Office Hours find out about it to show up on episode 1 on the very first day?
I believe almost all of them were, it was a tweet, Leland.
That's correct. I received a little word from John, but it was a tweet that came out from Alex that said, sometimes you just have to be somewhere. And that was what led me to say, okay, I want to see what this is all about, because someone made a call. It was a stage call. We kind of made that apparent, and we saw that as what it was. So we arrived to show up like he asked, and this is what it became.
Yeah. George?
Definitely Alex on Twitter, and it's been life-changing.
Yeah, for me too. It's amazing. No, next question.
Courtney's follow-up is, how many people on the panel today were here on day 1? Show of hands, please.
Couple of us. Yeah. Couple of us. Yeah. It's interesting. Next question.
A. Mitchell's in Washington. What was the biggest contribution to the group? Unread note, biggest doesn't always means the best, but
biggest contribution. I don't. Yeah, go ahead, Stuart.
The questions that the producers ask every day. And they're going to be the most disappointed today, because today's probably going to be the day where we miss the most questions because of how good they've been at asking questions today.
Yeah. Go ahead, Roscoe.
I think the learners, I think the Benjamins and the Tonys and the people who came here, and it encouraged all of us to see them go places.
Yeah, absolutely. Next question.
Bo Cordell in Charleston, South Carolina is up next, and he says, I appreciate the fact that while I've only participated in pre-show and after hours a couple of times, I've been watching for nearly a year and still feel like I'm part of the community and know you all. It's a testament to the platform that Alex evangelizes.
Yeah, I think that sometimes people, we get comments of like, well, how come the panel looks a certain way or is a certain way or whatever? But to me, the panel is like one little tiny bit of what happens, and Discord and after hours and everything else is its own world. And Office Hours itself becomes less and less of, it's like this little thing that pokes out that people get to see versus everything else. And there's so many people involved in the after hours and Discord and everything else that never is part of that. It's interesting. Let's go to the next question. I'm going to try to get through a couple more of these.
Okay, Danny Law is up next with one of the considerations in selecting the time for Office Hours was to make it conducive for international audiences to join in, because the time selected is great for international participants.
To be honest, it was because I didn't want it to get into work time. So I have to go to work at 9, which I have to go to a meeting in 50 seconds. It's pretty important. So I won't be able to be late, but it was just literally me being able to do it in a time that I could do it. So I wish it was more designed. One thing that I'm thinking about doing right now is we're going to leave these in. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to pump these back. So we have this little feature now that we can push these all back to you. If you want to continue this conversation, these are all the questions should be going back to each person who asked them into your notes. So we push them all back in here. If you want to bring them up tomorrow, we can discuss them tomorrow as well. So rather than not answering them, we just push them all back to all of you, and you can bring them back up again. And we'll continue the 500 discussion at that point. Go ahead, Leo.
I was just going to say, can we, you can, if you want to carry on some of this conversation and you can put up with more of Carmi, then we're going to be doing it in after hours. But I also wanted to thank for the new people that came on today, which is that I can see on my screen, which is Ross, Frank, Alan. There was another one, David.
Frank.
Yeah, it's just this, to me, it's the new people coming in that make this just as good. It's not, it's hearing new voices saying the same thing, even if they only say one word. It's brilliant.
And again, if you don't want to come in here, it's fine. Just come to office after hours. You can, it's a nice, safe place to hang out as well. I want to thank, again, I just want to thank the panel for being here every day. You know, all of you coming in at different times and different days and everything else. It's just amazing to have you. It doesn't get done. Like, I thought it would be me answering questions, and it's not about me anymore, which is amazing. And it's about all of you doing incredible work. And also, thank you to our producers who are asking all the questions. Again, it doesn't get done without you. So anyway, it's really good to have all of you. So we'll do this again tomorrow morning.
Happy 500.
500. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, Chad.
All right.
Thank
All right.
you,
See you,
Chad.
everybody. We'll see you in the after show or after hours starting right now.